The Geneva Convention Center hummed with anticipation, its glass walls reflecting the crisp September light over Lake Geneva. Inside, the Global Youth Summit for Sustainable Futures was about to begin, a historic gathering where young representatives from 195 nations would discuss climate change, technological ethics, and global equity. Among them were two figures who carried the weight of their nation's expectations: Barron, a 19-year-old delegate from the United States, and Leonor, an 18-year-old representative from Spain. Barron adjusted his tie as he stepped into the main hall, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. At 6 feet 3 inches, with a composed demeanor and sharp blue eyes, he cut an imposing figure for someone so young. Selected for his intellect and public speaking prowess, Barron had spent months preparing for this summit, studying policy briefs and honing his arguments. His role was to represent American innovation and advocate for pragmatic solutions to global challenges. Yet, beneath his confidence, he felt the pressure of being watched, not just by his delegation but by the world. Across the room, Leonor stood with her team, her posture regal yet approachable. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back, and her crimson blazer bore the subtle crest of Spain. As the youngest delegate from her country, Leonor had been chosen for her academic excellence and her ability to bridge divides in discussions. She was here to champion Spain's commitment to renewable energy and cultural preservation, but she also carried a personal mission: to ensure smaller nations' voices were not drowned out by global powers. Her warm smile masked her nerves as she knew the summit's success depended on cooperation, not competition. The opening ceremony began with the summit's chair, Dr. Amira Khalid, addressing the delegates. "You are not just the leaders of tomorrow," she said, her voice resonating through the hall. "You are the voices of today. The world is watching to see if your generation can forge a path forward. Discuss, debate, and, above all, listen." The roundtable, first impressions. The delegates were divided into working groups, and fate, or perhaps careful planning, placed Barron and Leonor in the same roundtable, tasked with drafting a resolution on climate adaptation strategies. The room they entered was circular, with a long table surrounded by 20 chairs, each with a nameplate bearing their country's flag. Barron sat across from Leonor, their eyes meeting briefly as they exchanged polite nods. The moderator, a Swedish diplomat named Dr. Olsen, outlined the session's goals. "Your resolution must address funding for coastal resilience, technology transfers, and equity for developing nations. You have 3 hours to reach consensus." Barron spoke first, his voice steady. "The United States proposes a global innovation hub to develop cost-effective flood-resistant infrastructure. We're prepared to fund 30% of the initial research, provided there's international oversight to ensure transparency." His proposal drew murmurs of approval, but also skeptical glances from delegates representing island nations. Leonor raised her hand, her tone was calm but firm. "Spain supports technological innovation, but we must prioritize accessibility. Many nations can't afford even subsidized solutions without compromising their budgets for healthcare or education. I suggest a tiered funding model, where contributions and benefits are scaled to GDP per capita." Barron leaned forward, intrigued. "That's a valid concern, but how do we enforce compliance without creating bureaucratic gridlock?" His question wasn't confrontational, it was a genuine probe, seeking clarity. Leonor met his gaze, unflinching. "By establishing regional oversight boards with equal representation from high and low-income nations. It's not just about enforcement, it's about trust." The room buzzed as other delegates chimed in. A delegate from the Maldives emphasized the urgency of rising sea levels, while a representative from Nigeria highlighted the need for local expertise. Barron scribbled notes, impressed by Leonor's ability to frame her argument inclusively. She, in turn, noticed his willingness to listen, unlike some delegates who seemed more intent on scoring points than finding solutions. A break in the corridor, common ground. After the first hour, the delegates took a short break. Barron stood by the coffee station, scanning his notes, when Leonor approached, holding a cup of tea. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her accent soft but clear. "Not at all," Barron replied, gesturing to the empty space beside him. "Your tiered funding idea, it's smart. It addresses a gap in my proposal. She smiled faintly. Thank you. And your innovation hub has potential, but it needs safeguards to avoid becoming a top-heavy initiative. Smaller nations often get sidelined in global projects. Barron nodded thoughtfully. I've seen that in some of our tech rollouts. We pushed AI-driven farming tools in rural areas, but without local input, they fell flat. What's Spain's approach to that? Leonor sipped her tea. We've had success with community-led solar projects in Andalusia. Farmers and engineers collaborate on designs, and the government subsidizes training. It's slower, but it's more sustainable. That's practical, Barron said, jotting it down. We could propose something similar, global funding for local adaptation, with training built in. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Olson's call to resume, but as they returned to their seats, a mutual understanding had formed. They weren't just delegates, they were problem solvers, finding synergy in their nation's strengths. The debate heats up. The second hour grew contentious as larger nations, including China and India, pushed for greater control over technology transfers. A delegate from Fiji accused wealthier countries of climate colonialism, arguing that funding models often left poorer nations dependent on foreign aid without agency. Barron and Leonor exchanged glances, silent acknowledgement of the discussion's stakes. Barron intervened, his tone diplomatic. The U.S. agrees that dependency is unsustainable. What if we included a clause mandating technology co-ownership? It could ensure recipient nations retain control over their future. Leonor built on his idea seamlessly. Spain proposes that co-ownership includes training programs tailored to each region's needs, as we discussed earlier. Fiji's point is critical, agency matters as much as resources. The Fijian delegate nodded, and the room's tension eased slightly. Other delegates began offering compromises, and by the end of the session, a draft resolution took shape, blending Barron's innovation hub with Leonor's tiered funding and regional oversight. It wasn't perfect, but it was a framework they could work with. Evening reception, a moment of reflection that evening, the summit hosted a reception on the lakeside terrace, with the Alps silhouetted against the twilight sky. Delegates mingled, swapping stories and business cards. Barron stood by the railing, nursing a glass of sparkling water, when Leonor joined him, her blazer now replaced with a simple navy dress. Long day, she said, gazing at the lake. Yeah, Barron agreed. But productive. I wasn't expecting to get this far on day one. Leonor chuckled softly. Nor I. Your co-ownership point was a difference maker. It shifted the debate. And your regional board's idea kept it grounded, Barron said. We make a good team. They fell into easy conversation, shifting from policy to broader reflections. What got you into this? Barron asked, curious. Leonor paused, choosing her words. Growing up, I saw Spain's how climate change hit our farmers and coastal towns differently. I wanted to understand why some communities had solutions while others didn't. Diplomacy lets me amplify their voices. You. Barron leaned against the railing. I've always been around big ideas, policy tech, policy debates. But I got tired of talk without action. This summit's a chance to prove we can do better things. They shared a moment of quiet agreement, the lake's gentle waves filling the silence. Tomorrow's session on tech ethics will be tougher, Leonor said. AI governance is a minefield. Barron grinned. Good. I like a challenge. You ready? Always, she replied, her eyes steady. Their exchange was one of peers, united by purpose, not sentiment. As the reception wound down, they returned to their respective delegations, ready for the next day's challenges. Day 2, the AI Ethics Resolution. The next day's session focused on artificial intelligence governance, a topic where tensions ran high. The delegates were tasked with drafting principles for ethical AI development, balancing innovation with privacy and global access. Barron and Leonor's roundtable reconvened, but the atmosphere was less collaborative than the day before. A delegate from South Korea proposed strict global standards for AI surveillance, citing privacy violations, while a delegate from China argued for national autonomy to foster innovation. The discussion stalled, with accusations of mistrust flying across the table. Barron raised his hand. The U.S. suggests a compromise, a global AI ethics charter with core principles, like transparency and accountability, but with flexibility for nations to adapt it to their legal systems. It's not ideal for everyone, but it's a baseline. Leonor nodded, seizing the opening. Spain agrees but proposes that the charter include a clause on inclusivity, ensuring AI benefits don't concentrate in wealthier nations. We've seen how medical AI can save lives, but only if it reaches underserved regions. A delegate from Nigeria chimed in, frustrated. How do we trust that? Big tech companies dominate AI, your country's companies. What's to stop them from setting the terms? Barron and Leonor exchanged a glance, their earlier conversations informing their response. We address that, Barron said. By mandating open-source components for critical AI systems, like healthcare or disaster response. It's not full control, but it's a check on monopolies. Leonor added, and we fund capacity-building programs to help nations develop their own AI ecosystems. Spain's done this with renewable tech. It's not perfect, but it works. Their combined proposal gained traction, though not without resistance. After 2 hours of debate, the roundtable agreed on a draft resolution with an AI ethics charter, open-source mandates, and capacity-building funds. It was a hard-fought compromise, but Barron and Leonor's ability to build on each other's strengths had once again bridged divides. Closing ceremony, a legacy begun on the summit's final day. The delegates presented their resolutions to the full assembly. Barron and Leonor stood side by side as their roundtable's work was read aloud, earning applause from the chamber. Dr. Khalid praised their group for its bold yet balanced vision, noting that their resolutions would inform global policy discussions for years to come. As the summit closed, Barron and Leonor exchanged a final handshake. Well done, Barron said, his tone warm but formal. You too, Leonor replied, her smile genuine. Until the next summit. They parted ways, each returning to their delegations with a sense of accomplishment. Their collaboration had not been about personal glory but about proving that even the youngest voices could shape the world's future.